Hi, so I have an upcoming course called Time and the Gods, which is about how Proclus explains that every moment has its own quality and at the same time goes by uniformly at a uniform rate, 1 second per second, a minute per minute. So moments are all the same in one respect, but in another respect, each one is unique. Now, a key distinction for explaining this is the distinction between eikones, images, and synthemata, symbola, signatures and symbols. And we can see this distinction if we look at astrological significations of the planets. So, for instance, the Hellenistic astrologer Vettius Valens, in his anthology, starts off with a chapter on the significations of the planets. So for Venus, for instance, he says that it can mean aquatic animals and priesthoods and wearing crowns and assistance from female relatives and painting, beauty of form, friendship, companionship, ornament. But then also it can mean the neck, the front, lungs, precious stones, olive, the color white, and oily taste. These are just some of the many significations he lists, and it can be a bit puzzling to see what is in common between all of these. How do all of these form a single list? Now, for some of them, we can see maybe some connection, some similarity. We can set up an analogy at least. So, for instance, we see a connection between beauty of form and painting, and maybe those have something to do also with merriment, and merriment is connected with friendship. We can build a kind of chain of associations, and maybe even something stronger than chain of associations, a chain of analogies, where we see that there is perhaps a core meaning of beauty, and then beauty is also present in beautiful things, and therefore also in making beautiful things, but then also in the effect of beautiful things, the joy, and then also in the sharing of the effect of beautiful things, companionship. And so we can see the chain here, we can see the connections. But then there are things that are rather random, right? Aquatic animals and lungs and the oily taste specifically. So this is quite puzzling, and the distinction between eikones and symbola can help us. So an eikon, an image for Proclus, is something that they're both eikones and synthemata or symbola, both images and symbols, refer to something, but they refer in different ways. So the image refers on the basis of some kind of similarity, right? So there's some kind of logos, some kind of proportion or analogy, like the one I just pointed out of how, merriment can refer to the thing that is enjoyed, which in turn can refer to the quality of what is that makes it enjoyable, and which can ultimately refer to the cause that makes it all enjoyable, right? Maybe the goddess Venus. But so here we have a step-by-step analogy or chain of similarity. And so that is how an image signifies. But Proclus says that there's also a different way of signifying, which is the way that symbols signify. So the original idea of a symbol, which etymologically means something that's thrown together, is a token that's divided upon a meeting or upon the making of a deal, so that each of the parties has half of the token. And then when they meet again, each can bring their half of the token, and the two tokens will fit. And that way, that's a proof that you're talking to the person with whom you made this deal. This is important, for instance, if you have a deal that is between two families, and people many generations down the line can come to collect, right? And then you use the token and you see, this matches. John Dillon has given the very good example of Cinderella's glass slipper, which only fits on her foot. And now there's, the glass slipper isn't a portrait of Cinderella. It's not like her in any way. It's just that it fits. And so there's this connection to the individuality of who it refers to. And that is what makes it refer to its object. So you can have a reference through similarity, which can be explained by means of a common form or structure, a logos. And then there is the reference of the symbol, which is a reference that depends somehow on a chain of events, a causal story, a fitting between the two things. They're not in any way similar to one another. They just belong together as parts of a single whole. And so now we can see this in the significations of the planets, because within all the significations, there's on the one hand these images. There's this chain, this analogical chain that we can somehow make sense of. But then there are all these other extra significations, so to speak. And these then point to the fact that in these chains of significations, we are indeed dealing with planets as gods, and not just as, say, formal principles, at least in Proclus's eyes. Because it's proper to gods to be signified this way, because gods are beyond understanding, they're beyond even intuitive insights into truth. They are ultimately values that guide intellect, but they aren't contained by intellect. And since they are these individuals that are beyond universal categories, they are referred to in an especial way by symbols which refer without the use of a common universal category between the object and what it signifies. So when we see here in the lists of significations in Valens and other authors, mixes between things that we can sometimes make sense of. For instance, the sun, it means knowledge and majesty and kingship. And then also things that we don't understand, like the sun, it also means the rooster and the lion and the palm tree. Why? We can see that we're dealing both with, on the one hand, aequinus, and on the one hand with synthemata, both images and symbols. And that this is what explains then the unity of this whole chain. And also important to observe is that the chain of images, the analogical chain that we can make sense of, is just a small part of the whole domain of symbols. And so the domain of symbols encompasses the domain of images, and it goes beyond it, because in the same way that the gods encompass intelligence, encompass truth, but they also go beyond it. And so we'll be looking into this distinction in my course, and we will also be looking into Proclus's arguments for how to understand that each moment has its own quality, and how this is ultimately grounded in the gods and their individuality. Okay? If you're interested in the course and reading more and enrolling, please see the link below. Thanks.